Welcome to Municipal Affairs. In late May of this year, on May 28, 2025, the City of Flin Flon, Manitoba/Saskatchewan faced one of its most serious emergencies in recent memories. A rapidly spreading wildfire fueled by extreme conditions and dry forests prompted a mandatory evacuation of the entire community. Some 5,100 residents, fearing the flames, could engulf the town's borders. The situation was dire. Fire crews, supported by water bombers, helitankers, and nearly 200 firefighters, fought to keep the blaze from encroaching on homes and crucial infrastructure as winds threatened to push it further inwards. Yet resilience quickly became the watchword. Just shy of a month later, on June 25, 2025, evacuees were given the green light to return home as the wildfire threat eased. Deputy Mayor Alison Dallas-Funk played a role in coordinating re-entry plans. She and other local leaders worked diligently to restore basic services and ensure households, businesses, and essential facilities were ready for the community's return. Now, in the weeks and months since, residents and businesses have returned in earnest, and life within the city is slowly but steadily resuming to its familiar pace. Mayor George Fontaine, in a news interview, noted that while medical facilities took a little bit longer to ramp up, even vulnerable populations, such as those in personal care homes, were able to return with care and support. Still, caution remains a constant companion. The scars of the blast zone just beyond the city edge remind everyone that while Flin Flon looks and largely feels like itself again, the resilience of its people and the alertness of its services continues to shape the path forward. Now, we recently were in Flin Flon, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, where we sat down with Deputy Mayor Alison Dallas-Funk to hear about the aftermath of those wildfires and how the city has recovered. Deputy Mayor, thank you so much for sitting down with me and doing this in Flin Flon. Got to start with a simple question. We are about 4 months after the wildfires that evacuated your community. Has life gotten back to semi pre-wildfire season this year, or is there still aftermath effects?
That's a difficult question because we really consider ourselves as a community made up of multiple communities. So I can't speak for Creighton or Denair Beach. I can say that our sister communities are definitely having the effects of it more than us, with the rebuild and the cleanup and having to deal with the Saskatchewan government, which has handled things much differently than the Manitoba government. I know for Flin Flon, I can say it almost has this COVID kind of effect of people coming back out and slowly emerging. On a municipal level, it's really held back our projects, and we just feel this pressure because the snow is going to fly soon to get it done as quick as we can. So there's a lot of construction and building going on right now. It has also, on other aspects, financially really slowed us down. We had to front all the money until we can apply for disaster relief, be reimbursed from wildfires and the Office of the Fire Commissioner. So when a small municipality with a tight budget fronts $2 million, that really is the indicator of what we can and cannot do at this point.
I want to go back to that first few days and that first few days of when you started to return, because it seems there was a lot of build up to the fire, and then the story sort of just stopped. When you saw people arriving back, because you were here for the majority of the entire time, if I'm not mistaken, when you started seeing people come back into the community, what sense did you get from them?
Relief. From community members, there was a gamut of emotion. There was relief, there was anger, confusion. A lot of people, when you come back into the community, when you first enter, it really doesn't look that bad. So if you're somebody that might not be affected by it in a way of fire or financially, because a lot of the businesses chose to pay their employees, you might have a different aspect of it. But on a whole, relief and gratitude. 5,000 people plus coming back, and I'm not including the lake communities. So we're probably looking between the lake communities, Provincial Park, Creighton, Denier Beach, and Flin Flon, 7,000-8,000 people. I think relief, sadness, and gratitude. That's what I felt. I attended, we had a welcome center set up for 3 days, and I was there the whole time. It was very humbling experience to have people come back in, and a lot of people just accessed the arena to have that connection with community. Depending on where you were, you might not have had any connection with anybody in the community, and so I felt like people were just coming there to have that, hey, I see you, you see me, and let's breathe together and get through this. It was a sense of hope, and yeah, it was very humbling to be a part of it.
What did your council and your mayor, your council and administration see as their role in those early days of the return? Because there's a lot of questions being asked, and there's a lot of things people I've gone through it, so I know that the moment people started arriving back is, okay, what do we need to do? How do we do that? What did you see your role as council to ensure that smooth transition from and I don't want to say craziness, but it was a bit crazy during that time.
Oh, you could absolutely say craziness.
Okay, I will say it because the
100%
deputy
you could
mayor
say
said
it.
it. What did you see for that transition period for council and administration to be doing during that crazy period to where we are today?
Well, when we decided, that's the thing, it's a huge decision to make based on what OFC and wildfires and, our fire chief, its recommendation is, okay, we're approaching the safe zone. We're approaching where we're not in immediate danger of, the fire possibly coming into the municipality. So from that point, that's when the pressure starts, because you feel you have to anticipate what we need, how much time people need to get in, and what does that look like? Because you don't want people back within your community without services. So that was our main thought as a council and administration. How do we get people back safe in the community? Maybe not 100% services ready, but what do you actually need? So that's where the process started for us, which entailed identifying what critical services we needed, approaching those businesses and getting them back in. But the number one issue for us was healthcare. We are the hub for all the communities. And at one point during the fire, we had probably 300 people here and one EMS service.
One?
Exactly. One ambulance.
For 3 communities
during a disaster.
Okay.
Which is an issue and is in my tremendous amount of notes about conversation that needs to happen. Let's hope that never happens again to our community, but for other communities, what is the responsibility of your health region and what should they be allotting and giving to you for support? So those were concerns for us. We can't service Pelican, Deschambault, Sandy Bay, Creighton, Denier Beach, Flin Flon, Cranberry, and Sheridan and Lake Community with one ambulance. So we quickly got in contact with the health minister. They spoke to me. Then we had a conversation the following morning and, okay, we need some ambulance. So then we went to 3. So the communities had 3. Creighton was really quick to respond in trying to get a mobile unit for their area, which would also help us. We recognize what they have as ours and what we have as theirs, hopefully on that level where we would be able to access their mobile vehicle, and our EMS actually services their region as well. So we knew if we were benefiting, they were benefiting. So it's hard within a tri-community to kind of move as one. The provinces have different rules. So that was a factor as well when we were reopening. Manitoba has very strict rules about evacuation, with the mandatory evacuation, that until that evacuation order is lifted, nobody is allowed in the community unless they're deemed essential or they're providing a service that you actually need to help that evacuation. Saskatchewan doesn't have that. They have their evacuation order and technically you're allowed to stay, where in Manitoba, the RCMP will redirect you to the next safest location. So if that was Cranberry.
So is that hard, being a by-border
very,
community?
Yes.
Because you are growing into the Saskatchewan side, Flin Flon.
Absolutely.
I can imagine
Yes.
some people saying, well,
Yes.
on this side of the
Yeah.
streets, therefore
Yeah.
I don't have to leave like you're telling
Yeah.
me to. So
Yes.
go pound sand.
Well, and part of Flin Flon is Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
So you can imagine now those 211 residents that are Flin Flon, Saskatchewan are going, I'm taking Saskatchewan rules. Those rules are way better than Manitoba. I'm going to get to stay in my home and bunker down, and I'm solid. But the reality is, we had no health care. You have no groceries. We only had fuel for, our trucks. We had a tanker brought in. So yeah, all of these moving parts with all the provinces and all the communities. So we just kind of started, we need critical service. Let's start with health care and see where we need a skeleton crew at our ER. So we had our one doctor we only have one private doctor. We spoke to them. They came back and opened their clinic. We got the ER up and running under skeleton, and then the work really starts, especially with your vulnerable people. We had 17 buses leave that night with 600 people. How are we getting them home? How are people getting home that might not have the money for gas? And then, emergency services advises you to tell your community, oh, bring a week's worth of groceries. Well, you're assuming that people can afford a week's worth of groceries. So we recognized those as barriers right away. It was important to us that people had services as soon as they came back, and part of that was access to food, access to talk to Red Cross. So we made sure we had that at our welcome center. I partnered with.
Well, there's a lot of tier systems that you have to play into play,
100%,
right?
like critical. Well, I have it on the backboard. It's interesting that we're in the office that was our command center. So I had to make sure that I could have fire protection here. So the fire had to die down enough that we had a fire team here. What if there was a house fire? And as soon as people came back, there was actually a fire, a call to Cranberry. So, I know it's frustrating for community to see all the people talking about all the things and go, well, but why not? Well, these are the reasons why not. And it can be difficult because you're a municipal leader, but you're also a community member. And your community's hurting. Your family's away as well. All the firefighters, everybody. Nobody wants people home more than that people that are actually staying here and doing that hard work. So we had to make sure that we had fire protection, we had to have healthcare, we had to have RCMP, and we had to have food. And banks. Those are all staples that you need for a community to survive. So once we had those in place, then it started, okay, let's pick a date. And then that's daunting. What if we pick a date and bring people home, and like Snow Lake, for example, and then you have to tell them to leave again? It's hard to get people to leave a second time, and I knew that. Our community,
Because you have to make sure that you get it right? And that's the big thing.
And how do you know if you've never done it before?
And that's what I want to sort of pick up on is you played without a playbook.
Exactly.
This was unprecedented in Manitoba style. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's happened in Alberta before, but in Manitoba, this was unprecedented, where a large-scale evacuation of this type. And now we're seeing it on like you said, Snow Lake. We saw it with Thompson.
Yeah.
What did you hear from residents after they got back? What was the sentiment about how the municipality fared about the information that was going out? Because you were relatively the face of the fire. And I say that not trying to be rude.
No, you're not.
You were the one that was out there, and you were the one on news, and you were the one talking to people. What did you hear from the residents afterwards?
Yeah.
Like, now we're August 28th of recording this, and I'm just reading on the back of your thing. Mm-hmm. June 23rd is when the state of emergency was lifted. Yes.
I have to say, community coming back, from what we heard, was the most humbling experience I've ever had, and the privilege. You really don't know how you're affecting people. That's the thing when you're here, and I'm sending out those messages, and as a municipality, we're deciding, and I'm making notes all day, and like, this is important, or people need to know this, or let's deliver it like this, let's do it video. You don't realize it could go two ways.
Yep.
It could have been awful, and it could have been well received, and it was, and I'm grateful for that. Gratitude, like I said before. People very much were coming up to, especially me, I'll speak for myself, but I know for all of council, thank you so much. Thank you for keeping us informed. I think people just really want to know what's going on. And as transparent as you can be, the better it is. There was a lot of, to be honest, anger about Red Cross and how it was handled.
We could do a whole other show just on Red Cross. So
you know, I honestly have a couple of issues. I did leave community for about a day and a half, and I was in Dauphin, and I went to the center there and navigated some issues with the province for them. There was no Red Cross presence there at that point. So there was a lot of anger around Red Cross. There was people with issues with the Saskatchewan Manitoba part. So Red Cross was standing firm, we're only doing Manitoba. Well, when you're from Flin Flon, Saskatchewan, and you're evacuated, say to Swan River, you still look at yourself as you're from Manitoba because you're within our municipal border. You're part of Flin Flon. And that was a big issue. The border issue of getting access to services or hotel rooms was a really big issue. So people very much had a lot of conversation about that, but in a whole, that is not the municipality, and everyone recognized that. I think it's the first time in 3 years that I really sat back and went, this is, where you can see how a community working together for a collective, betterment works well. And I feel like our team, everybody that was here from the province and the firefighters did that. And then our community trusted us enough to leave and then to listen to us, to wait, and came back and knew that we were doing it for the safety of them. So there was a lot of thank yous, a lot of people crying, like finally taking a breath, because when you don't know day to day where you're going to be, maybe you're in a hotel and they're like, hey, we've already rented this out, you got to leave. Those were things that were happening. So I think coming back they were extremely emotional, whether it be upset by Red Cross or emotional to come home.
It's about the information, because especially during a wildfire or any type of emergency, you want to communicate, but you can't communicate this street is okay or this street is okay, because there's going to be people who think, okay, what about my street? What about my house? Can I get a photo of my house? I want to talk about the municipal aspect post-fire now, if you don't mind. At the beginning of the interview, you said this year is kind of a wash, and I'm using my own words, and because all the infrastructure projects, all the projects that were ongoing had to be paused.
Yeah, we're trying.
Can you get it back?
I think we're actually doing pretty good to get it back. Coming back in, that was a huge conversation the first meeting we had as a council. Okay, how much is this going to set us back? Everybody knows we're in the north. Obviously, we have a very short window. You have winter and construction, and that's that.
Well, you have like a week of fall, right?
Sometimes. Lately it's been like that, but who knows with this year? I'm not saying anything. I don't want to jinx us about anything. I hope that the snow doesn't fly early. We were lucky enough that a lot of the contractors recognized, okay, we got to get back there right away. So we have a huge pool project going on, for example, right now. We need to be on time and on budget. We're tight for that already. And they have hustled, and they're not behind schedule. They were actually a little bit ahead of schedule, so we're okay with that. So that's fantastic. We do have a sidewalk project, somewhere up to like $2 million with a bus grant from the federal government that we received. So now, instead of getting it all done this year, we're going to have half and have to do it next year. So that entails now our administration asking for extensions possibly. And what does that look like? So are we in a position that we want to be? No, but I don't think we're in the worst case scenario. I think there's actually things getting done. We're still going to have the paving that we wanted to get done. It
but
won't be done.
But are there big picture items that you have to say, okay, we just won't be able to do this? No ifs, ands, or buts.
Well,
we wanted to get it done this year, but next year it's going to be better.
100%. So we were going to demolish the Flin Flon Hotel, and that was, I think, $550,000, and we took that off the table. Because it's a financial situation where we fronted the $2 million for the cost of this fire now. Our airport alone is sitting at just over $800,000 in fuel. So you're waiting for that money back from wildfires, disaster relief, and all the other organizations. you're on a tight budget. So that's one of the projects, absolutely, that we said, you know what, let's take that off the table. Let's just board it up for the winter. I know community isn't going to be happy about it, but if it comes to, we're going to lay off people because we don't have any money, or we can't do paving, or we can't pay our part of the grant, we're not going to demo.
Or next year when you say we have to raise your taxes 7% because
Exactly. Yeah.
we have to
Yeah.
offset what we just spent last year. What do you see the role of that provincial municipal relation being right now, particularly in this tough financial tear? And I should say this, and just for anyone's listening or watching, municipalities were struggling beforehand. It's not like the fire went, okay, we're going to just, you're now in this financial situation. Municipalities have
now
been
we're best friends.
Exactly.
Yeah, not happening.
What is that role that you see that the municipality and the province need to play in this critical time right now in addressing the financial burden that Flin Flon is under?
So last week we went down to we were actually in Steinbeck. There was City Caucus, so it's when all the municipalities get together, and that was a huge conversation. So Mayor Fontaine and myself got up and kind of gave an overview of, red flags that if any other community is going through this. Kathy Valentino spoke, what do communities need to do when they're the people that are taking the evacuees and the financial burden on that. And then I did speak quite a bit about the finances and how it should just be a standard, in my opinion, that it shouldn't go through all the channels and take as long as it's taking. Everybody knows everybody's on a tight budget. The province is, but the municipalities are as well. And so the fact that we apply for disaster relief and then they're having a by-election, and so now everything stops. So what does that do to us as a municipality? Well, that stops our projects. That stops our cash flow. So for me, I feel like a disaster relief fund should actually have its own pathway for communities. A community shouldn't suffer when this money, we don't need to argue that there was a disaster. The province was in a state of an emergency. It's not like certain things, like we've applied for disaster relief one other time since I've been on council the last 3 years, and that was small flooding. And we had to go through the hoops for that, and we were denied. I get that because it was a one-off, but this was a provincial disaster. We shouldn't have to beg to pay the firefighters or feed the people, or pay our employees, or pay the fuel at a cost to the taxpayers. The taxpayers should not have to pay to protect all the provincial park, because that's the reality of it. We paid for all of that right now. And so
provincial parks you were
well, because you have to think, right? So you think there's an RM of Kelsey, there's Sheridan, there's Provincial Park where houses are, then you have the unorganized territory, then you have Flin Flon, Manitoba, Flin Flon, Saskatchewan, and Denier Beach, Creighton. And they've paid for their own part on Denier Beach and Creighton, but for us, the parks are part of us. And so you get into that with that Northern Affairs argument of who's actually responsible to pay for that. Well, could you imagine if our command center said, yeah, we're not going to go to the provincial park and help you out because we're municipal firefighters? We would never do that. So that then becomes our burden. They're housed and they camped at the provincial park, but all that fuel came from the airport, which is the municipal's responsibility. The command center was here and the food was all being cooked here. Our water that was servicing everybody, all of those things help with that provincial park fire as well. The fire never breached our municipality. It never crossed the perimeter at all. Fortunately, it was
on either side of the
not on any part of Flin Flon within our municipal boundary, and we're very fortunate for that. And it took a lot of work. And I have to tell you, there was 2 days where I'm actually shocked that we didn't lose anything. And I've been raised here. I never ever in a million years thought I would be ever having this conversation with anybody at any table, never mind at a municipal level. Most of the losses were in the park. I think there was about 11 structures lost at maybe cabins and in the provincial park and outside of the park. That whole park and our airport and everything would have been gone if we didn't support that. But we supported that along with the province and 53 other firefighting communities that came and volunteer firefighters, as well as our own. So we looked at it provincially, but ultimately we were the leaders in it because we were the municipality attached to it. So I don't think that municipalities are set up to pay out of pocket for that. And Northern Affairs needs to come up with a different kind of stream, and same with wildfires, when municipalities are on hook for that, because then you have the urban again paying for the rural, and that puts a huge strain. What if they turn around and say, nah, you don't get all that money? Well, we've already paid it. So
now tell our taxpayers that.
Exactly. So yeah, you're not going to give us $400,000 in wages for firefighters, and what do we do? How do we recoup that? We have no other avenue to get that money back. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's an application. So everything we put in there, they can go yes or no.
The future is bright, but it's also
I think so.
a little foggy as well. The one thing about emergency disaster like this, or an evacuation like this, is the post-traumatic stress that it puts on people.
Yes.
The municipality does not play a role in mental health. And I'm saying that just because I've done enough of these shows that you don't have a responsibility in there. But when I walked out,
which I don't agree with, but okay.
But you don't have, you do. You can't dictate the provinces.
No, you can't.
But you do have a role to play in it.
Yeah.
But
that's my personal opinion.
Yes, it's mandated by the province.
Yes.
When I walked outside Swan River at the hotel that I was staying in last night, I smelled smoke in the air. When I smell smoke, the first thing I flash back to is the wildfires. And that is probably something that's happening here in Flin Flon as well.
100%.
When you smell smoke, you're going to think, okay, do I need to evacuate? Am I going to be prepared?
What's it look like?
How does the municipality prepare for that going forward now? Because we're still in the early days of the post recovery, but you can't take your eye off the ball anymore.
No, and we learned that last year with Cranberry.
Yeah.
That was the first kind of seed that was dropped within our municipality about, hey, you better get ready. This could and will affect you. So when Cranberry was evacuated, we quickly, once OFC was here, was like, have we talked to the health region? Have you guys talked to Creighton and Denier Beach? Oh, do we all have the same plan? What does that look like? So we had a great team that really worked on our plans. That being said, when chaos hits, it's all good to have plans, but sometimes the plan doesn't go like you think it's going to go. I can say, being here and watching all of these firefighters every day in their communities, while some of them lost properties at the same time, it was difficult. And the mental health aspect that they as themselves have, I can't imagine. I definitely think we need better resources, especially in the north. And a lot of the secluded areas are forgotten about. So if you think like Lynn Lake, Leaf Rapids, Sheridan, Sheridan has, and Denier Beach as well, they were really left alone to fend for themselves. And I can't imagine that burden and that pain that you couldn't help your community enough, where I feel like I can say I helped my community, and I can say, there were things that I could have did different. But I wasn't ultimately the person standing at that fire line. The stories that I've heard about PTSD afterwards and people not sleeping, it will come out in other aspects of your life, having more anxiety or being easily angered. I know that we brought mental health services in, but that being said, the other, I think, barrier for us is we're in a small community. A lot of people.
And a remote community, and I say that respectfully.
No, it's the reality of it. And part of that, though, is you have people that might not feel comfortable talking to the people that are employed here. And that's an unfortunate aspect. It's not, saying anything against any mental health worker here. But I'll just use myself for an example. I would be hesitant because I'm going to see you. And that's unfortunate. And that's a byproduct of being in a small community. You don't have access to different services, or maybe somebody that specializes. I know that they did bring in somebody immediately afterwards that was in and hung out in the fire hall for a couple days, which I thought was fantastic. But on a daily, watching people from all over the province, other countries, come and shift change, every 12 to 15 hours sometimes, and walk in and knowing that they're going to have to do the same thing the next day, and that despair and the pressure of having family in other locations, and maybe they're not doing okay in the other locations, and then doing it over again. And then you add a social media aspect on it, maybe people not understanding what's going on, and then they might read negative comments. The mental health aspect with social media was something I wasn't expecting when it came to the fire. I would just expect people would be grateful and kind and wow, everybody's really working their, butts off. That was not the case. And so I watched, for a better part of 25 days, 70, 200 people every day do the same thing for the only reason but to help a community. And I know that they will have those residual effects for a very long time. When I'm just thinking of just a community member, I know that there's community members that are as well having PTSD in an aspect of, I'm not going to unpack my bag. I'm afraid. Like, how do you know it's not going to happen again, Alison? I don't. Like, I don't. Nobody knows. I can't predict that. All I can say is we will watch and we will be prepared, more prepared than we were. And I think we were pretty prepared. But yeah, I think people are afraid that it's going to happen again. I think people want to take the attitude, I'm not going to leave, which really hinders a fire. That worries me, is that if it ever did happen again, that people will not leave. And what happens is then those fire protectors and those RCMP are now worried about the community instead of structure and asset. And it puts them in danger. And so I just think it's a big ball of a lot of different aspects. So I do think community is sitting there more than I've ever seen, because we've all experienced the smoke nonstop our whole lives, but never like this, and never had to evacuate, like you said, and it's the largest evacuation. I think the uncertainty of it creates a tremendous amount of anxiety in a community. I really do.
One of the aspects of an emergency situation that is often overlooked, we talk about the frontline workers, we talk about the residents, but we often don't talk about the administration.
This is true.
The people who are working in the command center to ensure that things are kept track of, people are being informed, people are fed while they're here. You were here for the majority of it. There's a few days where you left. How did you feel that the administration handled their responsibilities and being able to pick up so quickly and put together an EOC at a drop of a hat?
The day that the evacuation was called, it was interesting. That morning, Mayor Fontaine, myself, and the rest of council met with our fire chief. And at that point, I think it was like 10:30 in the morning. At that point, we were gonna declare a state of emergency, not an evacuation, just the state of emergency, so we could be in the queue, and the province was aware of what was going on. Jason, at that point, our fire chief wasn't, not yet, I think 24 hours. And once again, like I said, things are unpredictable, and the wind kicked up. By 3:00, 3:30 in the afternoon, we're calling it. So you can imagine we had already been on the radio saying, we're just declaring state of emergency. We haven't said evacuation. Within 45 minutes of the mayor and I saying that on radio, the evacuation was called. So that's the unfortunate thing sometimes, is that we have no control and we make the best decisions we can based on what people tell us. Not saying that our chief was wrong, because he wasn't. That day it was extremely hot and the wind really kicked up, and it moved a lot faster than they were prepared for. So it was the best decision for our community. Within 10 minutes, it was amazing. Within 10 minutes, we had pretty much our administration that needed to be here in chamber, ready to go. So we had our EMO officer, all of council was there, our CAO, our rec person was there as well, because recreation plays a huge part in evacuations. You use their halls and whatnot. So we had everybody here. Our fire chief had already contacted OFC, and they had already been here. So that immediately started. But then the message had to get out. And what did that look like? So we started doing the message on the radio. I hadn't did a video yet, but we got the message out right away. Like, you had to go to the community hall if you need it, services and whatnot. So I took the lead on the vulnerable persons at the community hall, because I run our food bank here, and I very much do a lot of programming and work with a lot of service providers. So I felt like, okay, I got this. And our staff was all leaving. So we had two EMO officers here, and myself and our staff as well. And we worked all night to get 600 people out. So within 12 hours, we had 5,100 people evacuated. It was calm chaos. And then the next 2 days, it was 12-hour days, 15-hour days. Okay, what's next? What's next? Keep getting them out. Let's do the sweep. And then the video started. And that's how I started getting the communication out. I was not prepared for, I did not understand how long, nobody did, how long this was going to take, how many hours this was going to, cost of time, manpower, and who actually should be in the community. So we were figuring that out as we were going. But you're correct. Nobody thinks about your staff. So the person that's doing procurement, the fire department had their own person, which was great, and OFC brought somebody in. But those guys were working 15 hours. We had to bring in our water guys. So we had 2 people running our whole water system. Yeah, and those guys were working nonstop 7 days a week. Our admin staff was away, and then after 2 weeks, we brought them back, because then the financial part comes into it. We have to start paying bills. What does that look like? How do we get things? So then they came back, and then we had our EMO here. So, you had a very basic minimal staff that was working 15-hour days. And Kathy Valentino spoke about this at caucus as well. You just forget, even your council, you forget how much you're working. Like for myself, I was leaving my house at 6:30 in the morning, going to cook breakfast, serving at the hall, making the lunches, cooking the supper, on top of sitting in the meetings, figuring out the communications part of it, doing the video. So, after 20 days of doing that, the exhaustion that comes out, and also the guilt of, you have these firemen that are out there, every day doing it. And then you feel like, oh my God, do not complain. Do not say you're tired. You are not even in the field. Get it together. So that aspect kind of kicked in with all of us, and we just made it work. But it is a real thing, the exhaustion of people, and there's a fine line. What is safety, and who do you need? And often people err on the caution of, we need to be more safe and get everybody out, where it's not really safe not to have enough people, because that's where mistakes happen. And so I think as a municipality, looking back on it, we definitely would have kept some more key, operations and works people here, and to have that rotation. And same with our admin staff. We definitely need a rotation.
I'm cautious of time here. And
sorry.
Hey,
I'll be shorter.
Hey, that's why Councillor Slip said you like to chat, right?
This is true.
What haven't we talked about the post aspect of this wildfire that has, I don't want to say changed Flin Flon, but it has dramatically altered the direction of where Flin Flon will be going in the next few years. Yeah. What would you want people to know about where your community stands today?
That's a broad question. I think our community is standing where we were standing before. We just
but you're different though.
We are different. I think we're wiser. I think we'll definitely be more prepared and not have blinders on, like not going to happen to us. It was the same thing though when Hud Bay was going to shut down. Everybody's like, oh, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And then it happened. And then everybody's like, you're going to die. You're going to die. And it didn't. You pivot. You do better when you know better. And there's always a way to figure stuff out and get it done. I think Flin Flon's extremely resilient. And that's why we're still here. I don't think this fire will change that. It's really brought some light to provincial issues that we really need to work on to make everybody feel heard and part of being at that table. And it's functioning as one community in a disaster. I think that it's changed us in a sense of, it's difficult to watch people. It was the case of have and have nots when it came to the 2 provinces, and that changed our communities. We could really see,
Has it changed the way that you're going to approach both provinces now?
for me, yes. I think
Because
for our council, yes, because they're not listening. They don't look at Flin Flon at all as any Saskatchewan, and they don't look at us as a region, except for when it comes to healthcare. So why are we not operating in other aspects? Like, why is our RCMP not operating like that? You know, why do you have a detachment in Creighton and Flin Flon? It's federal. Like, we can have one and save costs to everybody, to the municipalities and to the provinces. So there's aspects that they're picking and choosing when it's beneficial to them, to the provincial province. And I feel like as a council, this has really made us take the blinders off and go, you know what? We need to start lobbying more with the Saskatchewan government for us and for other communities, because we are part of that. So I think that has definitely changed.
if you ever want good tips, go talk to Gerald Albers, the mayor of Lloydminster, Alberta,
Yes.
Saskatchewan.
Yes, Councillor Slip has said.
He would love to probably
It's-
sit down with you and talk about the challenges of cross-border jurisdictional issues.
We have a provincial highway like in the middle of our community that's Saskatchewan, Manitoba, ours, and then Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Like, it's nuts. Our wastewater plant is in Saskatchewan in the middle of our town, because that's how the line, it makes no sense. No sense.
Is the time zone at least better? So that way you don't cross
Well,
into Saskatchewan, you're an hour behind.
funny thing. So we had a meeting with Foran, and they run on Saskatchewan time, and we run on Manitoba time, and so does Creighton. So it's interesting. It brings up things
I'm
that you
not
don't think of.
laughing
No,
because
I'm
the-
laughing.
I'm laughing
Yeah.
at the absurdity. Of
I'm
the-
laughing. I'm laughing. But I do have to say, like, I think any community that goes through something like this is going to be changed. Do I think it's too soon to know what that change is? Possibly. I've been in the thick of it a lot, so it's hard sometimes to see it when you're in it. I didn't realize how big it was going to get with videos. And I'm grateful that my community trusted me and us. But I do think it's going to make us be more prepared, and I can't say work together better, because I feel like Manitoba, I'm proud to be from Manitoba. It was pretty incredible what the province did and what all the other communities did. So I know we're grateful, and that's part of being from Flin Flon.
Deputy Mayor
Thanks.
Dallas-Funk, thank you
Thanks.
so much for doing this. Allison, greatly
Yes.
appreciate it for doing this.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Did you know that Manitoba's municipalities have a voice working tirelessly for them every day? That's the Association of Manitoba Municipalities, your trusted partner in advocacy and action. From local roads to economic development, emergency services to community planning, the AMM ensures municipal priorities are heard loud and clear. They work side by side with local leaders and municipalities, empowering them to tackle the challenges that matter most to their communities. At the AMM, they bring municipalities together, united on the key issues and stronger as a team. Together, they work to make sure your community's concerns don't just get heard, they get action. So whether it's building infrastructure, strengthening local economies, or shaping provincial and federal policy, the AMM is here to make municipal issues matter. The Association of Manitoba Municipalities, advocating for your community, making a difference for all Manitobans. Learn more about how AMM is helping your community at amm.mb.ca. The business community, too, has faced both disruption and renewal in the wake of the evacuation. For many local shops, restaurants, and service providers, weeks without customers brought significant financial strain, while others used the pause to rethink operations and strengthen their connection to the community. Organizations such as the Flin Flon and District Chamber of Commerce have stepped forward to play a vital role in that recovery, coordinating resources, advocating for support, and providing a forum for business owners to share challenges and solutions. Now, we spoke with Corey Eastman, president of the Flin Flon and District Chamber of Commerce, while we were in Flin Flon, Manitoba last month. He emphasized how collaboration among businesses, local government, and residents is helping to rebuild momentum in the economy, ensuring that Flin Flon's commercial heart beats strong as the community transitions back to normal life. Corey, thank you so much for chatting with me. I want to start with a simple question, but an overarching one. We are about 3 months after the state of emergency was lifted, and residents and business owners started to come back into Flin Flon and Air Beach, and I believe 3 months, if the Saskatchewan and Manitoba sides were both the same, and in Creighton. How has the business community rebounded since people started returning back to their communities?
I think the business community has shown a definite resilience, but it's not. I think the impacts are still being felt by many of the businesses. It certainly isn't business as usual, although it keeps seeming like we should get back to that. That's the way it should be. But I think when we met as an executive with our chamber, just kind of for the first time after everything happened here the last couple of weeks, there was discussion about whether there needs to be more focus on economic recovery and whether there needs to be some steps and maybe seek out some provincial help in terms of dollars to be able to help people. There are businesses, they lost anywhere from $7,000 to $40,000 in revenue in a month. Many of these small businesses continued to pay their employees, not knowing that it was maybe going to be a four week expense at that point. They may have turned to EI or something a little sooner, but they figured if it was a 2 week evacuation, many of the small businesses still continued to pay. So I think the impacts are still being felt. People are still digging themselves out of a bit of a hole, and depending on their insurance and how much insurance and if they had insurance, and just trying to work their way through that, I think has been a test for people.
What does business as usual look like in this sense? Because business as usual is never going to be the way that it was pre-fire, right? Because
Right.
this is now the reality that you live in. So what would relatively business as usual look like in your sense?
Well, I mean, I think it also depends on the community, right?
And it
Because
depends on the business as well, right?
for sure, yeah, I think depending on the community, you have Denair Beach. Obviously, the business as usual. It will be a while
Yeah.
to return to that. Most have been impacted, or most of their customer base is impacted. Creighton and Flin Flon, obviously. Some of the small business members, worked in emergency services, and so it's not like they had a 4 week break or anything in that regard. So they're still dealing. I think there's mental health pressures. But what does business as usual look like? Just you have your regular hours. You have kind of the regular traffic that comes through. People are in their homes. They feel secure. They have that sense of security. There's still a lot to be figured out with just general housing for those that haven't uprooted, and they can kind of focus on their work again. One of the things that's happened with having to deal with insurance and having to deal with kind of the other stakeholders and what's happened, even you may not as the business owner be impacted, but maybe two or three of your important staff have been, right, and they don't have residents. So have they been able to find rental accommodations to be here? So I know that some of the impacts aren't even at the business owner level. It's the staff that they depend on. And so they haven't really been able to return maybe to full staff, or they've had to find replacement staff. And, some of those individuals have had to find rentals outside of the community. So there's impacts that continue to kind of reverberate. But
What role do you see the Flin Flon District Chamber of Commerce playing in this aftermath of these wildfires?
I think one of our primary roles, and one that we really want to focus on moving forward, is to be that conduit between not just the municipal government, but to the province, right? I know that through the Manitoba Chamber, through Chuck Davidson, we have a good relationship there. And certainly we feel that we can speak to them. There are funds. I know that on our executive, we do have Becky Chinfloni, who's with Community Futures Greenstone. And she's done quite a bit of research here in the last month or two into economic recovery and what other jurisdictions have done. So, I mean, if we can look at those models, whether it be Jasper or whether it be some other communities, then that would be kind of the way we see our role is bringing those to the forefront, not having to say to to the municipal governments even. Hey, what are you going to do for business, or what? Because it's not like everyone has a pot of money, right? Just to give out.
You don't say that.
No, it's funny. It's in the ground apparently, is where it is here in Flin Flon. But there is only so much provincial or municipal money, but there are. What's funny is that as you talk to more communities that have been through this, there's ways to get access to that. Now there's some work that has to go into it. So if the chamber can play a role in gathering information and speaking to, members and kind of doing an assessment to say what has one of the big things when you look to any kind of program, if you're going to look at maybe a recovery program, right, is to do an impact assessment. If we can do that, on behalf of the municipality and because everyone has, these guys are looking for, as my understanding is, the City of Flin Flon is looking to the province to get some disaster relief dollars, right? And so they're taking up with that. So if we can have the conversations with our members of chamber that we already know, then hopefully we can gather that, bring it to the municipality, and use it to apply for grants or funding that may help our members.
After the 2010 wildfires in Slave Lake, Alberta, I started working there, and some of the business community, it took a while. It wasn't just a 2-month thing and then everything's back to normal. And you said it's the business as usual, and some are still not business as usual, or some are just closed up shop.
Yeah.
Do you have concern as president of the Flin Flon District Chamber of Commerce that you're watching and you're sort of seeing that assessment you're talking about, but are you watching the next few months with sort of an eye really hard focused on some businesses, whether they be those small businesses that have traditionally relied on tourism, but particularly this year, tourism is not something that you're getting a lot of people.
It's very difficult, right? I think that it's just in again, we haven't had that many formal discussions yet, although that doesn't mean that we don't have email trails back and forth between many of the individuals.
Ironically, they said email as an email just came.
Yeah, exactly, as something just dings on the phone. So if there is more that we can do, I think you're absolutely right. I think to be honest, I'm surprised because this is the first time I've been through anything like this, right?
There's no playbook now.
Exactly. And even though which is funny when you're speaking to other communities outside, right? And they all, they're all concerned, and the outpouring of support and that we received from other communities, whether in our industry or down south where people kind of took refuge, was amazing. But once they hear you're back, they're like, well, okay, things are just tickety boo and everything's fine. So I think really understanding what I've had to learn is that it really, we can say it's 1 month away, but you're right. Whether Slave Lake is another example, right? There are businesses that can't afford to lose that month, right? Or they've been impacted now with loss of premises, or their customer base has changed, right? So it's going to take a little while to recover, and hopefully there's things that we can do to help people along that way, right?
One thing that you did mention, and I talked about it with the Deputy Mayor of Flin Flon as well, Deputy Mayor Dallas-Funk, is about the post-traumatic stress.
Mm-hmm.
It can have lasting effects on business leaders, can have lasting effects on residents. We are not traditionally set up to talk about things like post-traumatic stress in small towns.
Yeah.
But as a business leader, as someone who went through the fire like everyone else,
absolutely.
How's the on the ground mentality of the business leaders in Flin Flon in the district right now? Because I'm assuming you're talking to business leaders from Creighton, from Denier Beach, and from Flin Flon. What do you get a sense from them?
I haven't talked to each individual, obviously, but
grand scale.
I think there's an absolute and not to use the word too heavily, but resilience, right? There is. That's not to say they're not suffering those things and could use those supports, and that's one of the things with self-employed individuals or entrepreneurs. A lot of the time, they maybe don't have that array of options that you may find with somebody that's has a benefit package and all those things that are kind of behind them. An example being, right, the Alpine convenience store that was lost at Denair Beach. They're now set up in the kind of in the confection area near the beach, and they're selling fish and chips, and they're doing all they can, right, to kind of continue on and to help as they work through the rest of that process. So in terms of mental health supports, that's maybe something I'd like to look at more through the. Obviously, we have some things through the chamber plan, benefit plan. But if there's something that we can do provincially, whether it's look into whether there's virtual aid or something available. Obviously, again, nobody does that for free. Everything costs money.
Yep.
And from the business perspective, I can appreciate that. But on the other perspective is the humanity of it is absolutely true. PTSD is certainly, and especially for the people that were here, the emergency workers, right? And those, I don't think the impacts are necessarily going to be known, until maybe we get into the long winter
Year
that could
2,
be
3.
coming. Yeah, and you really see that, or next fire season comes, as apparently climate change is possibly one of the root causes. Just saying, but I'm not. I don't think I'm letting the cat out of the bag. But yeah. So if this is, I really hope this is not the new normal in what occurs. Certainly, the last 2 years, right? We had some fire issues the year before, and then obviously this one was unlike I'd ever seen. And I grew up in this community, and it was.
Are you, as president, optimistic about the resilience of the business community?
I'm always optimistic. Yes, absolutely. I absolutely am. And obviously, I'm buoyed by what's happening around. A number of years ago in 2017, the primary employer had announced that they were closing in 2022, right? The Flin Flon operations. We know that those jobs have primarily shifted to Snow Lake, although people live here. Foran Mine is coming on. They're looking at hiring another 300 individuals on the Creighton side, so that cross-border,
look at that.
See what I do?
You know my audience.
I'm just trying to say there's things we can do.
Trust me, this cross-border tariff war has been great for the
I
Google
bet.
search.
I bet. Yeah, your SOE or search engine optimization's way up there. I absolutely feel that we are, whether it's, again, Foran, they're looking to hopefully be shipping, concentrate by February is my understanding. So that's going to have a playthrough here. And, a rising tide will lift all boats, right? That I'm sure I brutalized that saying. But the point was that, I am eternally optimistic. And my day job is with the Flin Flon Credit Union. So, we're betting big. We feel that this community's got a long future ahead of it, especially with projects like Foran and Calinex was looking outside the Manitoba side of Flin Flon there at something near Sourdough Bay Point. So I'm very optimistic.
You saw, you like many other residents of the district, saw the wildfires up close and personal. What's one thing that you hope people take away from what happened here and how the community, the district, the business community will be better set if it was to happen again?
I think it's
or actually, can I rephrase the question a little
sure,
bit?
Absolutely. It's your show.
I know, but I can do whatever I want on my show.
That's right, yeah.
Unless
absolutely.
it's my husband telling me I can't.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Then what's the world coming to? What's the one thing you want Canadians to know about what the business community went through that we haven't talked about?
That's a good question.
And I'm not changing that question.
Might have been one you want to send over on a this has come out before. No, if I put
this is all a conversation.
What would we like?
What haven't we
just
talked
about anyone that might be facing this type of an issue. It's we have a very unique. I like to think very unique. I think it is, obviously, because we do have 2 provinces involved, right? And for the benefits that can provide, it can provide a lot of obstacles or tension, because there is different approaches, different rules, different regulations, and especially when, I think the intention locally is certainly that we want to find ways to work together and do the best for the entire community. Provincially though, they have their rules to follow, and so when the province gets involved, they're not going to suddenly adopt another province's rules or formats. So I think it's just important that when you look at situations like this, in my humble opinion, I would say,
Speaking as the president.
speaking
of-
as the duly appointed president of the Flin Flon District Chamber of Commerce, I would say that it's just important to keep communication is key. It's king. It's everything, right? So whether that's communication between your emergency services, communication between your municipalities, communication is everything. So any kind of issues that came up, I think were in communication. But again, there was tremendous success. There was tremendous work and effort put forward by everyone that was here on the ground. I wasn't here through the duration, unlike the deputy mayor, right? That was able to stay. I did. I was out for about 2 weeks, I guess. And there were people that didn't take a break, right? There were people that didn't get that opportunity to just be outside of the stress of wondering, is the fire coming tonight? Is it going through? So, I have nothing. I can understand how it happens. You're dealing with the day to day, what's right in front of you, right? So, but that would be my message: is that I think, and hopefully, if we find ourselves in a similar situation, whether it's hopefully never, but let's say 10 years down the road, that we have communication on all levels that can help make things easier, right? The technology exists, but not everybody's as comfortable with technology, right? And sometimes there's nothing like a face-to-face conversation, because so many things can be misconstrued otherwise.
What are you talking about?
Again, I'm dropping a lot of big bombs here
like
today. I know I'm
harsh truths.
I know,
from
I know.
Flin Flon,
That's
Manitoba, Saskatchewan here.
that's right. We don't sugarcoat much. Although I'm a fan of sugar, and I'm a big follower all my life. But
Me as well.
yeah,
if you haven't.
that's my So
I want to thank you so much for doing this, Corey. Always a
no,
pleasure.
I really do appreciate it, and hope you come back to our community again.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Municipal Affairs. Now, we hope you've enjoyed today's conversation and gained some valuable insights into the aftermath of the Flin Flon, Manitoba wildfire evacuations and the return and its aftermath. Now, to learn more about the communities and the people that we feature on this show and our sister shows, visit us online at crossbordernetwork.ca. That's crossbordernetwork, all one word, .ca. Now, your support means the world to us. So if you can, share this episode with your friends, your family, and yes, even your community, and help keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we will be back with a brand new episode of Municipal Affairs shortly. Till then.